Hey guys, Bartel's Bookshelf here with my December 2021 wrap-up. 2021 is about to end and we're about to head into 2022. Hopefully in 2022 my reading continues to go well. I read 95 books this year, so that's pretty great for me. I haven't had a reading year with that many books in a little while, so I look forward to next year and seeing what that has to bring. But for now, let's talk about the books I read in December, for the final month of 2021. I read 8 books this month, which is pretty good for me. I mean, a lot of these books were shorter, but still, 8 books, that's a good rate. Let's get into it. I'm trying out a new recording system. I'm using the microphone in my headphones here, so I apologize if the sound is a little bit different or weird. If it doesn't work out, I'll just keep it the same for next time, but let's give it, I'm experimenting. I'm figuring out this whole booktube thing. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just talk to the camera about books. So, all right. I don't have my copy of the first book that I read in December, but I have a copy of the sequel, so I'll just show that. But the first book I read in December was the first book in the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. This is the second book, Royal Assassin. But the first book was Assassin's Apprentice, which I'll put up here so you can see what that looks like. I love these covers. These are by Michael Whelan, who's always awesome. So, as I mentioned in a previous video where I brought up this series, I've been wanting to get into more epic fantasy recently. I bought last year I bought the entirety of the Wheel of Time series because I meant to read that and I haven't gotten to it yet. But I've had these Robin Hobb books for a long time as well, and I've heard a lot about her. I tried reading, as I mentioned before, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson earlier this year, and I wasn't feeling it. It wasn't working for me. I didn't like the writing style. It was just very dry. It didn't pull me in. So I was buddy reading that with a pen pal, but I told him I wasn't enjoying it, and we both realized that we were interested in the Robin Hobb series, so we decided to buddy read the first book. I don't have the first book with me because I gave it to a friend, but I really, really liked it. So this series the first book, this whole series really, focuses on Fitzchivalry Farseer, who is the bastard son of a prince. It's narrated from the first person, and it's sort of him recounting his life over the years. And the first volume is about his days as a child and a young teenager. He's sort of seen as like a black sheep because he's a bastard son, but he is potential is seen in him by the king, and he is enlisted to become a royal assassin for the royal family, and so in recounting this early life and this training to be an assassin, we learn about him and the people around him. There's his mentor Shade, who's the one who instructs him in the art of being an assassin. There's the other princes who are sort of vying for control. Some of them he gets along with, some of them he doesn't. There's the wife of his estranged father that he has a relationship with, and sort of one of the key sort of plot points of this story is Fitz's discovery that he has this ability known as the Wit, which essentially means he can commune telepathically with animals, and he shares like a very close psychic bond with them. But in this world, the Wit is sort of looked down upon as this very like perverse, beastly magic that eventually reduces all who engage in it to beasts, to slavering beasts themselves. And so a big part of the book is about Fitz sort of learning to hide this aspect of himself from the people around him. And there's also stuff going on about these mysterious raiders known as the Red Ship Raiders who kidnap people and perform some mysterious rite on them that leaves them basically as like husks of their former selves, who are just prone to violence and crime and savage rage. So that's going on as well, on top of all the other stuff going on with Fitz and his training. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed the first book. It was written in first person, which is unusual for this style of fantasy, but I think that really worked for it. It gave it a very personal touch. The writing was lovely, which was a breath of fresh air after coming away from The Way of Kings, which was very very flat, I thought, and very just unadorned. And the thing about the first book is that it's not really like you hear the name Assassin's Apprentice, Royal Assassin, and you think it's going to be all about like fucking Assassin's Creed, killing people, type shit, and there's a little bit of that, but it's not really about that. It's more about Fitz and his life as him as a character, getting to know him and his sort of education as a young man, and the things that he goes through, being not only having the wit, but also being a bastard son. He doesn't really like belong anywhere, or at least he feels that he doesn't. He has issues, sort of being seen as like a legitimate sort of useful person. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of political machinations, manipulation from the king. And I don't know, I'm explaining it terribly, but there was just a lot going on that I really enjoyed. I loved the concepts. I loved the writing style. Fitz is a great character. And the supporting characters are all great, too. I really loved Fitz's sort of de facto father, Brit, who's the stable master. I really enjoyed Prince Verity, who sort of becomes... there's a lot of mentor figures in this book, which is one of the things I thought was interesting about it. It's sort of like, while you might think it's just sort of like an assassin book, it's really more about the education of a young man. And in that sense, it actually kind of gave me a Harry Potter vibe, in that, it's a young man being trained in all these various arts by different teachers and mentors, and sort of him reflecting on said training and the meaning of it and how it affected him as a person. I just thought it was really, really interesting. But yeah, I liked a lot of the supporting characters. Prince Verity, who was his sort of one of his many mentors, was really interesting. He's the de facto king in waiting after Chivalry. Fitz's dad abdicates the throne. There's just a lot of really interesting stuff going on. And it felt like there was enough left open, obviously, that there's room for sequels, but it felt very satisfying on its own. I really enjoyed it. I really look forward to getting into the sequels eventually. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but the sequels get longer as they go on. This one's almost 700 pages, so but I do want to read more Mammoths in 2022, so hopefully I'll get to these sooner rather than later. So yeah. Again, I don't have the first book with me right now, but that was Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. The second book that I read in December 2021 was Nights at the Circus by Angela Carter. I already talked about this in my top reads of 2021, so I'll link to that so you can learn more about it. But basically, just to give you the basics, I really enjoyed this book. It's a sort of magical realism story about a woman born with bird wings named Fevers, and sort of her adventures as this magical woman, and her eventual involvement in this American circus that takes her around the world to perform as an aerialiste. It's very lovely and imaginative. The writing is beautiful. It has this wonderfully evocative fin de siècle atmosphere, the turn of the century. Lots of feminist themes. It was just a beautifully written book. I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, and so as I said, I'll link to my top reads video if you want to hear me say more about that. But that was Nights at the Circus by Angela Carter. Great book. I'm an idiot, so I actually read 9 books this month, and I missed one. So 9 books in 1 month. That's great, right? Even better than 8. But yeah, so the book that I missed that I read this year was Yes, Daddy by Jonathan Parks-Ramage. And again, I made a review on this, so I'll link to that if you want to hear me say more about it. But yeah, this was a really interesting book, sort of a modern gay gothic in the vein of something like Rebecca, but very lots of sort of psychosexual drama and very sort of twisted power dynamics and things like that. About a gay playwright becoming involved with a much older, more successful playwright, and sort of the fallout and the abuse that occurs because of that relationship. And it was a very interesting book. It was well written. It was disturbing. I enjoyed a lot of the sort of thematic elements of it. I just felt that it was too short, too fast paced. I felt that the author was trying to cram way too much story into too small of a package. But I do think there was a lot to recommend it, so again, I'll link to my review. And if that sounds like something that you're interested in, I would definitely check it out. And I look forward to seeing what else he does in the future. So yeah, that was Yes, Daddy by Jonathan Parks-Ramage. The third book I read in December is this short novella, The Necrophiliac by Gabrielle Wittkopf, translated from the French by Dawn Bapst. Juan at Plagued by Visions mentioned this book very highly. He made a video about it that I'll link in the description. And he very kindly agreed to send it to me. And I'm glad he did, because it was very, very interesting. So this is a very short novella. It's about 90 pages. Well, I mean, you can guess what it's about, right? But this was a French novella published in the 70s that was only very recently translated into English about a necrophiliac named Lucien, and sort of his, how do I put it, his exploits. I really don't know how much I can say about this without getting into murky territory. But basically, yeah, it is about that, and Gabrielle Wittkopf doesn't shy away from any of it, any of the morbid details. But I thought it was a fascinating read. It was very, very, very beautifully written, a very lush style. I mentioned this to Juan, but it was definitely reminiscent of the sort of decadent French writing of like the 19th century, like Karl Huysmans and people like that, but sort of like heightened in a way. It reminded me a lot of Poppy Z. Bright in the sense of like using this very lush poetic language to describe these horrible things. My only thing about it was that I wasn't really sure what Wittkopf was trying to say. I mean, the sort of meaning of the whole thing was a bit murky to me. It was very interesting and it was beautifully written. I'm just not sure what I was supposed to get out of it, other than, hey, here's this weird dude, enjoy. But I did really enjoy. I did really enjoy it. As I said, it was beautifully written. There were several sequences in here that made my stomach turn, which isn't easy to do. The thing about it is that, I mean, it's not that. Of course, part of it is that, the events described in the book are abhorrent. They're disgusting. But I didn't feel that it was just being disgusting for the sake of being disgusting, or that, not necessarily. There was a craft to the writing that is what made it disturbing, rather than just kind of having these disturbing things, if that makes sense. Lucien, as a narrator, is so overwhelmed by his desires, and his narration is so full of very finely observed detail about the way he feels about certain things, that it just sort of draws you in and makes it feel that much more palpable, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was definitely a very interesting read, and thank you, Juan, for sending this to me. I very much enjoyed it, and I think there is a couple more Gabrielle Wittkopf books that have been translated recently into English, so I would like to check those out at some point. I do really enjoy this style of writing, this sort of decadent, lush, disturbing vibe. As I said, it's one of the things I love about Poppy Z. Brite, so I would love to read more of this kind of stuff. At some point, I need to read Karl Huysmans and all the other decadent French writers, but for now, this was a good place to start, I think. So that was The Necrophiliac by Gabrielle Wittkopf. The next book I read in December 2021 was Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. Of course, if you watch my channel, you know I made a whole 16-minute review of this, just gushing over it because I loved it so much, so I'll link to that up here and in the description. But yeah, obviously, this is a classic modern vampire novel. Just totally influential, changed the landscape of horror literature and vampire stories as we know it. It's beautifully written. It's wonderfully philosophical and depressing. There's just so many fascinating characters. I mean, it's great. If you haven't read it somehow, please do. I mean, if you like this sort of stuff, if you like vampires, if you like horror literature, you kind of owe it to yourself to read it. But yeah, if you want to hear me talk more about it for way too long, I'll link to my video. But yeah, that was Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. Great book. The next book I read in December was this one, Hell House by Richard Matheson. This was a buddy read with some people from Juan's Discord, including Juan himself. We found out, we discovered that this book takes place in December, and so for the season, we all just thought it would be good to read together, just to kind of get into the mood. And yeah, a lot of people really liked this. This is sort of considered a haunted house classic. I mean, there's a blurb on the back here from Stephen King saying it's the scariest haunted house novel ever written. But to be honest, I felt very lukewarm about it. I read one of the people I read this with was Monster Blood, who's a great YouTuber. I'll link to his channel, but he talked about this as well, and we basically felt the same way about it. It's sort of it's almost a reimagining of Haunting of Hill House in a way, because it's a similar plot about four people who converge upon this immensely haunted house that's, of course, affectionately known as Hell House, that was run by this mysterious despot named Belasco. And, of course, they all go into it thinking, you know, either, oh, we're going to cure this house of its spooks, or we're going to prove the existence of the afterlife, or whatever. You know, they all have different motivations for heading into the house, but of course things are never as easy as that, and they go wrong very quickly. So yeah, I had very mixed feelings about this. I thought the writing was just very uninteresting. It was very kind of bland and unadorned, which for me is like kind of a hard selling point. I need some kind of craft, or some kind of I don't know, some kind of oomph. And I felt that outside of like all the big haunting scenes, I just wasn't really that interested in a lot of the characters. A lot of the sort of haunted house elements felt kind of like been there, done that. There was an extreme sort of sexual element to the book, which was interesting, but not enough to like really make it great for me. So yeah, I just felt very mixed about it. I mean, there was definitely some spark, like I said, to the various haunting scenes, the big set pieces, and I did really like the ending. I liked the way it all wrapped up, but I don't know, I didn't love it. It just didn't really grab me like that, which is frustrating because I've read Richard Matheson before. I've read some of his short stories, and I read The Incredible Shrinking Man, and I really enjoyed those. So I don't know why, but this one just didn't really work for me. But I don't know. If that sounds interesting to you, you might like it. If you really love haunted house stories, this is considered one of the classics. So if you're interested, I would check that out. I've still got a copy of I Am Legend that I really, really need to read because that's another Matheson classic. So hopefully I'll get to that sometime soon. We'll see. But that was Hell House by Richard Matheson. And the next book that I read in December was The Vanishing Half by Bennett. Again, I already made a review of this. It's only 6 minutes, and I ramble, and I don't really say anything of note. I actually kind of fucking hate that review. I think it's one of the worst videos I've made so far, but I made it, and I'm leaving it up, and I'll link to it there if you want to hear me talk more about this. But as I said in that video, I finally finished this book after starting it in January, and I'm glad I did because I really enjoyed it. It was a great read. It was a very powerful story, a multi-generational story of sort of racism and colorism, familial bonds, sisters. It was a very, 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 very good, very beautifully written, very, very sad book about a lot of very necessary and important things. I don't feel qualified talking about sort of dramatic, sort of serious literary fiction about deep subjects like this. I don't feel qualified to talk about them, which is part of the reason my review sucked and I hate it. But I did really enjoy this book. It was as I said, it was a powerfully written story. I thought it was very nuanced and very all the characters felt very real and lived into me. It was a really good book. I know Brit Bennett has another. I think her first novel is The Mothers, so I may check that out at some point. We'll see. But I did really enjoy this. So yeah, that's once again I'm not explaining it well, but that's The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. The next book I read in December was We Contain Multitudes by Sarah Henstra. I mentioned this briefly in my Let It Snow tag video, so I'll link that up there. But yeah, this turned out to be a pleasant surprise. So this book is about it's a YA queer love story about a series of correspondences. It's written as a series of letters between a young gay teenager named Jonathan Hopkirk, who's obsessed with Walt Whitman and poetry and stuff, to the point where he even dresses flamboyantly like Walt Whitman with ties and suspenders and things. And as part of a writing assignment, he enters in a correspondence with this very tall, sort of moody football player named Adam Kurlansky, but who is affectionately known as Curl. They enter a correspondence, and the book is presented as a series of the letters written between them and the relationship that eventually develops out of this correspondence. And this book was a total surprise. I just borrowed it randomly from a friend because it sounded good, and I was in the mood for some, gay shit. But I was shocked how much I'd never heard of it or this author before, but I flew through it in like 4 or 5 days. I thought it was beautifully written. Of course, it's a YA novel, and it deals with a lot of sort of melodramatic YA elements, but they felt very deserved, and they felt they were executed well. I felt that the relationship between the characters made sense without devolving too much into sort of undeserved angst, which is my problem with a lot of sort of romance novels. A lot of the drama can feel contrived. It didn't feel contrived in this case. I thought they were both adorable, lovely people. I enjoyed reading about them. My heart ached for them. One of the things that I really liked about the book, which is sort of exemplified by the title, We Contain Multitudes, is that a big sort of theme of the book is dealing with the idea that people are more than they might appear at first glance. So, for example, Adam Kurlansky is sort of seen as like the typical, jock football player type, strong, silent type. But it turns out that he has a lot more in his head than people realize, and that people give him credit for. He's quite smart. He enjoys reading. He has all these freewheeling philosophical thoughts and esoteric interests that Jonathan is very happy to discover and to learn more about. And similarly, Jonathan turns out to be more than just, the flamboyant gay teen. There's a lot going on in his life and the things that he's dealing with and the things that he feels. So it just all came together really well for me. I really enjoyed it. I got a little emotional. I can't lie, but that's a good thing. It's difficult to do that with me. There's just so much stuff about kind of learning to accept yourself and sort of finding solace in another person. One thing that really surprised me about the book was how sexual it was. Of course, it's not graphic. It's obviously written for a young adult audience. It's not there's no explicit details, but the way that it's written about and the details that are focused on were pleasantly surprising and really, really sexy. So that was another sort of layer to it that I really enjoyed. Yeah, again, I'm rambling, but this was, like I said, this was a total surprise. I really enjoyed it. I haven't looked up the author. I have no idea if she's written anything else, but this was an immensely moving, emotional, gay love story that I just really enjoyed my time with, and I hope I can spread it around to more people now through this video. So yeah, if that sounds interesting, I highly recommend it. It was lovely. It was emotional. Check it out. It's great. And finally, the final book I read for December 2021, my final read of the year, my final completed read of the year, is this classic, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is, of course, a classic pirate novel, adventure novel, by a classic author, known mostly for this and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which I read in high school and I enjoyed. But I'd always been meaning to read this. I was always a big fan of several of the movie adaptations. I loved Muppet Treasure Island as a kid. Treasure Planet, the animated Disney movie, is great as well. But I'd never read the original book. And then recently, for his Sunday Penguin series, Michael K. Vaughan made a video talking about this book and singing its praises. And so I thought, it's about time I actually read that book. So I did. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, of course, I don't have to tell you what the plot is about, right? It's a young cabin boy, Jim Hawkins, and his discovery of a treasure map leading to an island full of buried treasure. And the crew that he goes on this adventure with, including the mischievous pirate and cook, Long John Silver, he of the peg leg and the parrot on his shoulder. And yeah, what follows is just a story of adventure, betrayal, treasure hunting, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. It was a lot of fun. It was very entertaining. I don't know that I loved it as much as somebody like Vaughn did, but it was definitely, I can see why it was a classic. It's short, but it's fast-paced. The action scenes are exciting. One moment that I particularly enjoyed was a fight scene between Jim and the coxswain Israel Hands, where they're fighting, and Jim is like climbing up the mast, and he's got like a flintlock pistol aimed at him, and Israel is like throwing his knife and pins his shoulder to the sail. And it's just really, really fun and exciting. And of course, Long John Silver is an iconic character. He's as Vaughn pointed out in his video, he's an evil villain, but he's also really likable and charming. You can see quite easily how Jim and the rest of the sort of honest crew members sort of fall under his spell. He's magnetic. He's sarcastic. He's entertaining. He's fun. He's a great character. The only thing that really tripped me up about this book was that, and this isn't the book's fault. It's my fault, but there's lots of nautical terms that aren't explained at all. So that was a little bit tough for me to get through at times. I Googled some things, But if I spent all my time Googling phrases I didn't understand, I would have never finished the book. So that was a little bit tough for me to get through at times, and there were a few scenes that were like a little slow. Some parts where I was just kind of like, all right, let's get to the point. But generally, it was a very entertaining, fun read. I can see why it's considered a classic. Even if I didn't effusively love it like a lot of other people do, I definitely see its merits, and I'm very, very glad I read it. And actually, reading it has made me want to watch Treasure Planet again, so I might do that with some friends over the weekend. We'll see. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with this, and thank you, Vaughn, for giving it your highest recommendation. It was a lot of fun. I've also heard good things about Robert Louis Stevenson's Kidnapped, so I might read that at some point. And if you have read that, let me know. What did you think of that? Did you enjoy that? Would you recommend it? So, yeah, that was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And those were all of the 9 books that I read. 9 books that I read in December 2021. So yeah, a great month and a great reading year in general for me. And I can't wait to see what 2022 has to bring. And I hope you'll all come on the journey with me. So I'll see you guys next year. Bye.